Welcome back, and Owen's here for a look at the day's business news. Hello again, Owen. We've got some breaking news this morning on Kodak. It's gone bankrupt.
Yeah, just in the last half hour or so, where Claire, Kodak filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US, hoping it can satisfy some creditors and try and get some sort of liquidity back into the company. It'll be no surprise to anyone that's followed this, the stock of this company, that it has sought Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Its share price closing down yesterday around 50 cents. It did have a very brief rally, actually, along with many other companies in the US. But remember that this company's share price has gone down from something like $30 a share back in 2007 to, as I say, not even 50 cents now, not even $1 per share. So, as I say, not quite the end of this company. Seeking Chapter 11 bankruptcy means it still has a chance to try and find a buyer and try and pay off some of those debts. But this is a company that's had losses of some $2 billion in the past few years and never really recovered from that.
It's a classic tale of failing to keep up with the times.
Well, what a killer fact this is for Kodak, Claire. This is the company that actually invented the digital camera back in 1975, but then shelved it basically because it didn't want the digital photography to ruin its print business and its traditional business. This is, of course, the company that has its roots back in the 19th century, inventing the Brownie camera back in the 19th century, the first $1 camera, and yet, as you say, it's a classic case of failing to actually modernize. It simply failed to compete with the likes of Canon, all those companies that invented digital cameras and have gone on to make big money with them. You have to ask yourself, do you even know anyone that uses Kodak anymore, either for printing? I certainly don't. There are so many other cheaper competitors out there in the printing business. It did have a reasonable business, Kodak, in terms of printing. It was also developing patents for digital use, and yet it didn't use those patents itself, really, to try and reinvent itself and possibly even get into making digital cameras.
Right, we'll be keeping an eye on this story. While we're talking share prices, though, let's take a look at the markets.
Yeah, despite that bad news for Kodak, it's been a pretty good day's trade on the Asian markets. The Nikkei finishing the day around 1.2% up. The Hang Seng, of course, still trading in similar sort of territory. So shrugging off any residual fears about the Eurozone right now.
Right, let's turn to the Eurozone crisis and a glimmer of hope for Greece. Private bondholders appear to be closing the gap with the government and bailout leaders over how much of their investments they're willing to write off. Their consent to halve around 200 billion euros of debt is crucial if Greece is to survive financially. But many obstacles remain to securing a 100% agreement. Here's Oliver Farry.
Talks continue to convince Greece's creditors to agree to a debt swap, something that will be needed for the country to get its next slice of bailout money. The talks pitch the Troika against holders of 200 billion euros of Greek debt, with the Greek government stuck in between. The Troika wants a reduction of interest rates on bond payments from the current 5% to 3 or even 2%. Athens is offering 3%, rising to 4.5% as the bond matures, but that would entail a loss of up to 68%, something bondholders may not be happy with. A deal is needed for Greece to secure the next chunk of the bailout, which it needs to make a 14.5 billion bond repayment on the 20th of March. But economist Yanis Varoufakis says the private sector involvement talks will ultimately be futile if the cycle of bailouts and austerity continues.
It is important. And it is important because if this PSI is declared a success, it will only be on paper a success. And if it gives our European leaders another excuse to give Greece another bailout on the basis of more austerity, this will be another nail in the coffin of the Eurozone.
Against a backdrop of increasing industrial unrest, there is optimism the talks will be successful. One senior Greek banker says a deal could be in place as early as next week.
So those talks continuing in Greece today, but on the sidelines of that, we've got another big test of confidence in two freshly downgraded countries, France and Spain.
Absolutely. You know, in any other time, Claire, any other business climate, we wouldn't even be talking about this. These are routine bond sales, and yet France has that small matter of being downgraded, losing its status as a AAA economy. So this is an important bond sale. Why? Because the French government is going to sell off long-term debt, around up to 9.5 billion euros in bonds between 10 and up to 30 years. This is for the long-term investors. They need these kind of people to come on board to show some confidence in this country, and not the kind of short-term venture capitalists, for example, who want to get in there and get some short-term debt and maybe even try and short France a little bit in the hope that the whole Eurozone house of cards comes down. So big debt sale there. Spain as well is on the agenda. The government there is also selling off long-term debt, around 4.5 billion euros worth.
And France badly needs to try to align itself with Germany as well.
Yeah, right at the moment when Nicolas Sarkozy really wants to try and make the French economy a little bit more like the German economy, certainly in terms of competitivity even, France appears to be pulling away. Just look at the borrowing costs for these two countries. You can see for Germany there, its borrowing costs are half those of France, with French bond yields around 3%. Not catastrophic, but not great either, particularly if you want to be a AAA economy. Remember, losing that AAA rating means that borrowing costs go up. It means piling more money onto the national debt.
Now let's stay in the Eurozone while we pick up on a few company stories, starting with fresh concerns over the health of Commerzbank. According to the Financial Times, European regulators say it's almost inevitable that the German firm will need state funding to plug a €5 billion shortfall. The warning follows this week's downgrade of Commerzbank by Moody's. It's been forced to write off millions of bad investments in countries like Greece.
Goldman Sachs shares have climbed nearly 7% in US trading. That's despite fourth quarter income dropping nearly 60%. The US investment bank's latest earnings dropped to just over $1 billion, but beat analysts' expectations. Goldman says it limited the damage through cost cutting that has led to a 21% cut in bonus payments over the last year.
And US authorities have uncovered what's thought to be the biggest insider trading case uncovered by the FBI. 7 men have been arrested accused of illegal trades of computer maker Dell's shares. The insider deals generated profits of more than $60 million. It's the biggest illegal trade of its kind uncovered by the FBI in a 5-year investigation into insider trading.
Well, let's stay in the United States for the moment, because the Detroit Motor Show was the moment for the city's remaining big 3 car makers to finally put the crisis behind them, a crisis that had seen them laying off thousands of jobs over the last 3 or 4 years. But it's a bitter irony now that as Detroit's main motor industry gets back on its feet, it's the city's finances that are threatening to sink it completely. It now stands as the largest US city potentially facing a bankruptcy, and the added humiliation of having the state of Michigan come in and run its finances.
The city is drowning in over $13 billion in debt and a $200 million budget deficit. Competition from European and Asian automakers has cost Detroit hundreds of thousands of jobs and a quarter of its population since 1950. With its tax base decimated, the city can no longer collect enough to pay for its infrastructure, resulting in blocks of urban blight.
We're cutting fire, cutting police, cutting teachers, cutting city services, cutting street lights, and creating the very conditions that would make Detroit a place where nobody would want to come in the first place.
Under Michigan law, the governor could handpick an unelected proxy with the mandate to slash costs unless city officials come up with an adequate plan to dig Detroit out of debt. A step fiscal conservatives say is needed to bring back business.
It is very difficult to attract investment to communities that are bankrupt or on the borderline of bankruptcy. So we have to bring them back to financial health.
Detroit is already seeking to trim $40 million in pay and benefits from city unions and has rolled back police hours. But unless Detroit can come up with a sound austerity plan, it will be up to the state, not city residents, who decide the future of Motor City.
That's all we've got time for now, but you'll have all the latest business news around 9:15 Paris time, including, of course, the latest on Kodak.
More on Kodak. I think it was the Instamatic that Kodak invented. It was a sort of rival to Polaroid. If you've got one, or indeed if you've got a Kodak camera, maybe not one that dates back as far as 1880, do let me know on Twitter at OwenFrance24, and let me know what you think about the demise of this company as well.
All right, thanks very much, Owen, and thank you for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.
Watch all of France 24 on France24.com. It now features more content and is quicker and easier to use. 24 hours a day, wherever you are, visit our website and catch up on all the latest news. Watch the channel in high definition. Pause live TV and watch programs from the past 24 hours at the click of a button. Find our reports, programs and web documentaries in seconds. All of France 24 in French, English and Arabic on France24.com.